Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Chats and Chapters podcast. I am your host, Caitlyn Howarth, book editor, podcaster, lover of words, all the things. I'm still working on a new intro. Not really sure. It's a work in progress. Today's episode is a different way to think about plot structure. So grab your favorite beverage, sit down, get comfy, and let's chat a little bit about plot structure from a professional editor. So, first things first, you have probably heard about some of the classic story structures: the hero's journey, save the cat, the 3-act structure, and then the universal story structure. I'm going to go over the universal story structure that I outline in my Editing for Authors course in case you are new and don't have a clue what I'm talking about. This just gives you a very universal basic idea of how to structure your book. So, first things first is the exposition. This is where we begin the story. This is how the character's potentially boring life looks. What does their day-to-day look like? What is their routine? What is normal for them? What is normal? This is also where we typically learn what our protagonist wants, but not always. I'm going to use Harry Potter throughout this episode to give you some examples and idea of what sections we're talking about and how this looks. I feel like Harry Potter is safe from spoilers, so I'm going to use Harry Potter. So we learn that poor Harry has grown up and not been treated well. He lives in the cupboard. His aunt and uncle tolerate his existence. They don't love him. They're not doting family. They're not happy he's there. He serves a purpose to help around the house and basically gets treated like poo. So that's the exposition. That is Harry's normal life. And then we get the inciting incidents. So that's what happens next. This is the moment that kickstarts our protagonist on whatever journey you have created for them. You are the writer. You are the creator of your world. So this is a moment that kickstarts the story, basically. They get a devastating phone call. They get kidnapped. They're bitten by a werewolf. They learn they're a wizard. You can't go back. So they lock eyes with someone across the room. This is the major thing that happens that prevents them from going back to their status quo life. So Harry meets Hagrid. There's obviously no going back. Once Harry realizes that he's a wizard, there's a wizarding world, there's a school, he's accepted, we're now on this journey with him. He can't go back. I guess he could ignore it, obviously, if he had taken the Dursleys' wishes, but mentally, he can never think about his normal life the same again because he knows there's this entire other world out there. So then we get the bulk of the story, which is going to be the rising action. The rest of the characters come into play. The antagonist is introduced. Our protagonist encounters obstacles on their way to achieving whatever they want to achieve. So Harry learns about his parents. He learns what actually happened. He learns that the Dursleys lied to him. He learns that there is this wizarding world. He goes to Hogwarts. He meets Ron and Hermione. He begins to unravel a mystery at the school that he learns he's the center of because he's the reason that Voldemort had a downfall. It's crazy. So that all of that, everything that happens, everything that they go through, that is all the rising action. And then the climax is the big moment. This is where Harry realizes that they were wrong. It's Professor Quirrell, not Snape, who was trying to get the Sorcerer's Stone. So someone has to win, someone has to lose. Harry wins, Voldemort loses again. And the climax, obviously, in the very last book, movie is their big battle. That is the big final climax. But even within series, the books follow the same arc. So you're going to start at the bottom, you're going to rise, then you're going to fall again. So after the big moment, after the climax, we have the falling action / the resolution. So this is what happens after the big moment, how you wrap it all up with a pretty little bow for your readers. So what is the fallout of the big battle? How does your protagonist feel? What is their new life going to look like? You tie up all the loose ends, unless, of course, you're writing a series, but you want each book to feel like its own package, its own little present. So Harry talks to Dumbledore after they find him, and Dumbledore tells Harry a bit about the magic that helped him win. He's reunited with Ron and Hermione, who are, of course, okay. They get on the train, and Ron says, "It's weird to be going home." And Harry's, "No, I'm not going home. Not really." Obviously, there's more. We know that Voldemort is still out there, but this is wrapped up like the best Christmas present ever, okay? And that is the basic universal story structure. You have the beginning, you have the moment where your main character can't go back, you have the rising action where things happen, you have the climax, the big moment, and then you have the falling action, the resolution, where we get to see a happily ever after, or maybe not so happily ever after. That's that. Boom. You have your story. But here is where I want you to think about this differently, and maybe this will help you. So if this seems difficult for you to picture because it's on such a grand scale, you're looking at the entire story the whole time and you're like, what the hecky darn are you talking about? Think about your story in mini arcs. You can break it down. What small thing can happen that will cause the next thing to happen and the next thing that can happen? Think about it in like little dominoes, if that's helpful. Break it down by scenes or chapters. They're their own mini arcs in themselves. You have the whole book and it's one big arc, but then you have within this entire book, you have little mini arcs. Little things that happen, things rise, things fall. This little side plot gets resolved, it falls, this, that, and the other. There are mini plots within the full story. Some of them overlap. Some just pop up here and there when they're needed and they make sense. So maybe think about it that way. A few more examples from Harry Potter. The scene of the Dursleys and Harry at the snake exhibit is its own little mini arc when they unfortunately have to take Harry instead of Dudley's friend. They didn't want to take him. Uncle Vernon tells him that if he does any funny business, he won't eat for a week. So it's like a little bit of foreshadowing. Harry talks to the snake. That's very interesting. That's building to something. Like now we learn something new about Harry and he can talk to snakes. And then Dudley ends up in the exhibit and the snake escapes. Whew, that's a mouthful. The snake escapes. So Harry gets in trouble and he's thrown into his cupboard under the stairs. He doesn't know what happened, but his aunt and uncle do. They obviously do. And they're not having it. They're not sharing anything. They're not telling him anything, but they are obviously pissed. So that's its own little mini arc. And then from there, that happens and it sets us up to understand the world better later on. We understand, first off, that Harry talks to snakes. We don't know why it's important, but we know he talks to snakes. We know he can do these magical things. He doesn't know. We know, obviously, because we probably read the back of the book. We know he's a wizard, but he doesn't know these things. The Dursleys know these things, but they're not telling him because they don't want to give him any more reason to be any weirder than he is. And so it's its own little mini arc. And then from there, he's punished. He's starved. He's not treated well, of course. They're pissed about it. And then he gets the letter. And that because of this treatment, he's even more ecstatic to learn that this isn't his life. This isn't his destiny. He's not actually stuck with the Dursleys like he thought he was for his entire life. So I hope that was a little bit helpful, gave you a little glimpse into kind of how to maybe look at your story a little different. These story structures that I mentioned, the hero's journey, save the cat, the 3-act structure, universal story structure, like there are so many story structures out there and every story kind of follows the structure loosely. Like you can plot your beats. In my editing for authors course, I give everyone a resource. It's an Excel document and it has all of these broken down with the linked to the article. So like you can look these up and figure out what would work best for you, what you like. Like you can go any way that you want with it, honestly. But if you're stuck and you're struggling and you don't know, like it's hard for you to look at your entire story and put it into these parameters and look at it on such like a large scale, break it down into mini arcs, into have them be smaller and just it's one step in front of the other. What can you do in this scene that happens between the characters to move it along for the next scene, and have them like bleed into each other, of course, but like they really are. And like I said, some overlap, some just pop up here and there, but you have the mini arc throughout your entire story. And I think sometimes breaking it down smaller like that is really helpful, especially for new authors who haven't written very much and they don't know their solid plan. If you don't have an outline, all of that, it can be helpful to break it down into smaller pieces and just be like, okay, in this scene, what do we learn? Where are we going? How does it lead into the next one? So I hope that you found this episode helpful. If you did, please follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube if you are watching this on YouTube. I hope you appreciate my October witchy background. If you are looking for a book editor, if you have gone through your self-edits and you're looking for a book editor, let me know. The link to my inquiry form will always be in the description or in the show notes below. If you are interested in signing up for my Editing for Authors course, it is an 8-week course. This is a course that I run that goes over all of my secrets, my editing process. We go over developmental editing, line editing, copy editing, and proofreading to help you, guide you, give you the confidence that you need, because I know, you might not know, but I know that getting your first draft out is an incredible milestone, but the revisions and the editing on your part are so important. Whether you're going to get a professional editor or not, having a proven path, having a clear path to go through your edits is invaluable. If you are interested in the Editing for Authors course, you can always DM me on TikTok or check out my website and see if it is live for another round. Once again, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please share it, like it. If you have any writing buddies who you think might benefit from this, send it along to them. I really appreciate you watching, listening. I'm so excited to have the podcast back and to be on here chit-chatting about all things editing, writing, books, all the things. Once again, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.